All right. Welcome back to the Big Roos podcast. We're your hosts, John and AJ. And today we are joined by Chris Townsend, who is one of our certified partners, consultant, and fractional COO for contractors. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, looking at your background, it looks like a hotel room. What's going
Yeah,
on there?
yeah. So I'm at the Western Roofing Expo here in Vegas, and yeah, I'm in my hotel room right now. Everywhere else is a little loud, so
Yeah, I hear that.
yeah,
How's the show been?
really good actually. Yeah, I think WRE is it's actually this is the first time I've been to this one. I was actually unaware of it. I had a vendor partner of mine told me about it and told me to come out, and then I've had some really good events, and yeah, very good. Good to connect with. I've been able to connect with some pretty high level people, industry changers, high level with some pretty big softwares and things like that. And so it's really cool to see the changes that are going on in the industry between the PE and the tech. I always joke that roofing's not a very sexy industry, but I think some of the things that are going on in it are pretty hot. Like we got some really good stuff going on. It's a good place to be.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. It's really exciting it's just moving so fast.
It's moving very fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely need to come out there next year. I think we were just talking about that before we got started. Next year we'll be there for sure.
Vegas is always a good time. Vegas is the first place I ever got five-star service. I didn't grow up, my family didn't spend a lot of money on traveling or food, and I came here for my 21st birthday, and I was just blown away by the service that we got, the intricacy of the buildings and the food. Everything was just so on another level. So I actually really enjoy. I don't come here to party, but I come here to just enjoy the food and some of the luxuries that are available here. So I'm always a
Love
fan
it.
of Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Been there a couple times. John and I went out for IRE a few years ago. That was fun for sure.
Yeah.
So I'll why don't you kind of walk through what it is that you do for contractors, who you currently, work with, and tell us a little bit about Can't Quit Chris, your consulting company, and
Yeah.
we'll kind of start there.
Sure. So technically, Can'tQuit Chris is more of like my personal handle that I use for social media, and the company's Can'tQuit Consulting.
All right.
What we so I had a roofing company, sold it back in 2022, took some time off, and then I started doing what actually got me into the industry, which is more or less fractional operations work, fractional COO, Chief Operating Officer, things like that. And then I got to a place where, uh, well, I ended up starting the company, selling it, and then when I came back, I did some traveling after I sold my company. When I came back to the States, I had some people asking me for help, and so I started doing a lot of high high end, high ticket custom work for people, building out their sales processes, CRMs, helping them brainstorm, honestly, just being another executive mind they can bounce things off of. And so I started doing that. The problem is, and this has always been the case, whenever I do that, I start with someone, and within a couple of meetings, they're wanting me almost full time. And so then I end up just, it becomes a project or two projects at most, instead of me being able to really consult and help a lot of people. So I still do all of that. I have a handful of clients that have me on a retainer as their fractional COO. And then what I'm working on now though is some lower ticket stuff, because really what I wanted to do was be able to give my knowledge and understanding to a broader audience at a lower cost. And if I'm doing everything one-on-one, obviously, my hourly rate's kind of high, so it's easier than if I have the ability to produce some content and products that I can distribute to a larger group of people at the same time. And it's maybe not as valuable as one-on-one, but there's still a ton of value that can be provided that way. So that's really been the pivot I've been working on right now, is trying to figure out how to get what I'm trying to do into the hands of more people.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
Makes
sense.
sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kind of scale your expertise and value, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
But it's
Um,
also, it creates an interesting opportunity for people too, because on the lower ticket stuff, it's, I can hand you a blueprint, I can go through calls with a group of people and everything like that. But then it also ultimately comes down to the owners to decide what they're going to do with that information. And so there's a little bit of just kind of a natural auditing process that occurs where the people who are going to put in the work and really want to grow their companies are just, they're going to start doing it. And those are the people who generally become clients. Sometimes it's people who are like, hey, I see the value in this. I don't have the bandwidth for this. Just do it. I love this, but just do it. And so they'll pay me to implement for them.
yeah.
But it's also, you also see the people who just, they want to roll up their sleeves and get busy with it. And that's a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And like seeing kind of them run with it, run with that information that you've given them.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I had a friend recently. I just did like a month with them. I did some fractional work for a month just to kind of get them over some humps, and we did. I do. I my so my my funnel of products starts with I have like I'm launching this masterclass call where I go through systems. We can talk about that later. That's like the low ticket kind of a thing, and then the next stage, usually if someone wants custom work, is I do, my A.D.A.P.T.S model, I do a systems audit for them. We do a scorecard. It's a 30-page questionnaire. And I did that with he's a friend of mine who became a client. And at the end of the process where the end product of that is a punch list of things to do to improve the business and potentially rough costs and timelines for rollout. And so I handed him that, and he's a ProLine customer now, and he's signed up with several of my vendor partners, and I'm hands off with him for the most part. He checks in with me a couple times a month, half the time as friends, and it's really cool to see. He's someone who just ran with it, and then I had another guy who started at the same time, went the complete opposite direction. I have zero bandwidth, Chris. I love everything you're saying. Just do it. You know.
Yep. Yep. Different situations. And also owners tend to have a wide range of like how tech savvy they are, what they enjoy doing, what they don't enjoy doing.
Yeah. How
Um,
hands-on they want to be. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It makes total sense. Let's go back to kind of your story, which you sort of jumped into really, kind of went through a little bit, but I think it's really impressive, how, so, now you're working, you're consulting, but that background that you have of not just being owning a roofing company, but actually going all the way with it, all the way through an exit. And if, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you end up exiting to private equity? Is that
I
right?
do. Yeah.
Okay. So you did the full drill. You did what a lot
Yeah.
of people are wanting to do and accomplish. And I think that having that, you've done it. So you are
Yeah.
truly qualified to teach it. Can you kind of walk through when you started, I guess let's start with, how did you get into roofing to begin with? Like, how did you end up starting your company?
Yeah, so quick, I'm gonna give like a real quick background prior to that. So for my undergraduate degree, I did business information systems and supply chain management double degree from TCU.
Hmm.
So that was my undergraduate degree. Didn't use it at all. I got a job writing graduate level textbooks on supply chain technology for one of like the dean of the school when I graduated. Economy crashed in '08 when I did that, got laid off 6 months after, went into retail, got humbled tremendously. I ended up working as a sales rep at the mall after my 4 year degree, which I was too prideful to do in high school. And then, so I did that for 5 years, worked my way up to be a GM for them, was pretty successful. I've got a kind of a wild story.
Yeah.
I ended up becoming a Bible college professor after that. And so
That's
I
a jump.
spent 7 years writing theology books. I got a master's in theology. But when I was doing that, one of my I wasn't making a lot of money. I never really monetized that. But it's interesting because I had actually built out the funnels and everything for it, but I don't know, something felt weird about monetizing it, and so I never really pushed for that. I also didn't have a lot of money at the time, so it was hard to pump money into ad spend and all of that. So in any case, I wasn't making a lot of money, and I had a student slash friend who was working for a roofing company, and he asked me to come out, and he said, "Hey, will you come and build a little mini canvassing team for me?" Because he knew I had a background in sales management and training and everything. I went through some tremendous, honestly, best training I ever got in my life was with that retail company. As much as I kind of hated that role, it was probably one of the most influential things on my professional life. And so I came out of that, and he said, "Yeah, come grab like a person or two for me, train them how to go door to door, because I don't want to canvas anymore. And then I want to close the deals." So it was a sales rep who was more or less trying to automate and delegate parts of his process. And I said, "Sure." And I was really excited. The day I was supposed to start, I got a text from him. He said, "Hey, the owner wants to talk to you before you start." And I was like, "Man," I was like looking forward to start making some money here. And the owner said, "Hey, let's grab lunch." It was a Monday, and he said, "Let's grab lunch on a Wednesday. Don't ask me how I remember that." And so we went to Jimmy John's out in Waxahachie, Texas. And by the end of that, he asked me to build a canvassing team for his whole company, which was doing about 10 million and had 35 reps at the time. And I said, "Sure. How do you want me to track the leads, right? Because it's going to be a substantial amount of data and upkeep." And I had already talked to my friend because I'd asked him but prior to this, I'd asked him about what he was using for project management software, and he was using a notepad. And so I asked this guy, and he said, "Oh, we're like maybe an Excel spreadsheet." And I said, "Man, you actually don't need a canvassing manager. You need like a director of operations." And so he ended up like on the spot hiring me to do that for him. Did that for a couple of months. He and his partner split ways. It was pretty ugly, as tends to happen in the roofing industry. His brother had died. He was absent for about 3 months, and the other owner, minority owner, split off with like 90% of the company. I stuck with him. He had taken good care of me. I stuck with him. Got in the field at that point because he needed cash flow. He had all this overhead from prior to that. And so I got in the field, grabbed a couple of guys, trained them. We just, murdered a neighborhood basically that was out in Duncanville, Texas. We just set up shop and just absolutely slayed. I'm really competitive. I love the idea of like a war of attrition and taking territory. And so it was all about like how many of our signs, you go in these neighborhoods, there's 50 roofing signs in there. And I was the new kid on the block. I'm like, I don't have more signs than anybody else. So we went out there, we did a nice job for about 6 months. And, you know, he got into some like, he was stretched thin financially. He cut my pay again. And I ended up, I was pretty loyal, but I had some other guys that were wanting me to work with them too. So I expanded my offerings and did a little bit more fractional. Started working with these other two guys, one who I'd gone to church with and his partner, and helped them for, I don't know, 8, 9 months, help them scale their company. And at the end of that, they split ways too. It was not as ugly, but they just didn't really want to continue working together. And they both offered me an equity role to work with them. And I chose one, and we, went 50-50 on a company, started Bearded Brothers Roofing and Restoration at the beginning of 2019, and scaled and sold in 2022.
2019 to 2022. Yeah, that's a pretty quick
It is,
turn,
and it wasn't
relatively.
intentional. It was not
Really?
intentional. No, we had no intention to sell, actually. That was not the goal. I honestly,
Huh.
we never even really tried to scale. I was a kid playing in the sandbox, man. I was trying to figure out all the little nuances of the industry, understanding the intricacies of insurance versus retail, the repair model, maintenance plans, commercial, residential, how the different technologies work. And back in 2019, the technologies were substantially more limited than they are now. I mean, that was 5 years ago, and it's a completely different world in the roofing space. And so that was the really the journey that we went on during that. Was I consider it 3 years of R&D on the industry. I wasn't even growing. I mean, the growth of the company occurred kind of by proxy to that. It was almost accidental. I mean, sure, we wanted to grow. It's not like we were, against growth. But very interesting how that kind of played out. And then we got approached mostly because of our systems. We didn't have a huge revenue business or anything like that. We didn't optimize for EBITDA. There's a million things I would go back and do differently, and someday might do if I decide to build another one. But from a sales from selling the company's standpoint, but it was really mostly because of our systems that we were required. So we were approached, didn't know anything about the PE world at the time, and we got a pretty interesting offer, and so we jumped on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was all, I was going to ask, like, what was the key? What was the key? So it was the systems. How did you approach systems differently than, say, other companies in your market or other companies that you'd worked with before? Why was it that you specifically were attractive to PE for the systems?
Sure. So, my whole thing is, as a business owner, your job is largely to replace yourself, right? So if I know how to do everything in the business with excellence, I want to find someone who can do the job equally well for a lot less money, and someone or something. And so if you go to my A.D.A.P.T.S model, which is an acronym for audit, design, arrange, purge, technologize, and subcontract, right? So we audit, we look at where we are, we design where we want to be, we arrange the priorities, we purge, we get rid of anything that's superfluous, unnecessary, bring in technology to automate, and then we delegate anything that's left over. So really those last two, that's the big game changer. Is I didn't want to do anything, right? Like I want to be able to be a lazy business owner. That doesn't mean I'm going to be, but I want to work because I want to work, not because I have to work. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the mentality I try to instill in my clients. Is I don't want you in the truck unless you want to be. If you want to be in the truck, great. Like, go enjoy it. If you want to be on the roof, great. But I don't want you out there if you don't want to be out there. And frankly, it might not be the best place for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we did was we went through, and it was really a pain. Now we have systems like ProLine, where you've got, this automated communication, these drip campaigns you can roll out in, with the click of a couple of buttons, but we didn't have that. And so I spent so much time, energy, and money trying to figure out how to do workarounds. I mean, I paid Sales Rabbit and Job Nimbus to try and do an integration together, like a special integration. We used GHL to back end both of those systems. We put in a lot of effort to make that happen, but ultimately what it came down to was, within a year, the vast majority of the business was really pretty automated. I set a goal. My first goal for the companies, most people are focused on revenue or maybe profit. Mine was, I want to look like a 10-year-old company within 10 months. On paper, if someone looks us up, I want to look like we've been around for 10 years because of the level of excellence. So everything from our logo to our website to the reviews that we had, the systems that we had a bunch of automations. We were very customer service, white glove service kind of focused. So those were the big changes. And then we also did some really interesting things with, like, selling retail in Dallas, flipping insurance to retail. And so we did a lot of really kind of interesting things, I would say, that were probably attractive to someone in PE because it gave them angles and avenues as well as the automations and systems. And then my business partner he's a genius with commercial and specialty systems. And so we were kind of a nice package, rare package deal where you had someone who I would say I have probably an uncommon operational mind, and as a roofing owner who also has done, the full sales process from door to door. And then my business partner was just, he's you know he's a he's a genius, in those ways, and in other ways too. So I think they were attracted to us and then the products that we had kind of put together.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's awesome. There's just so much there. I've been like taking notes. So we can circle back. No, I mean, that's phenomenal. I love your adapts model. I love that how you have it broken down. Makes so much sense. I was looking at that a few weeks ago because I went and kind of looked at your funnel for your new offerings.
Yeah.
There's so much value there. Just in the mental models before you even look at the information and the systems themselves. just the
Yeah.
mental models of like adapts and like just being able to, that's so valuable.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah. Incredible. So one thing kind of stuck out to me, and I want to ask this selfishly because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot personally for ProLine even, but I know it applies, across the board for a lot of contractors. That is, you're talking about as a business owner, you want to get to the point where you don't actually need to work. Maybe you want to work, and maybe, you go and jump into things that you want to do, but you don't have to work. Um, and a devil's advocate on that
Yeah.
is something that I've struggled with is when you build out the business to the point where it no longer needs you
Yeah.
it doesn't need you at all. um how do you, well, I guess an instinct that I have is like, well, I still need to be in working on all these things because I need to set an example for the rest of my team. I want the rest
Sure.
of my team to look at me and see I'm working just as hard as them. And so I guess how would you handle slash balance that, for for me or for a contractor that's like, hey, I hear you, but I really don't want my team to be looking at me like, why am I working so hard when he's not? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, that's an absolutely fantastic question, very astute observation. And frankly, it is a problem. You can absolutely destroy your culture by being an absentee owner. So I think there are angles to take on that, right? And here's the thing. I'll tell you, I mean, I'm a really transparent guy. I actually had one of the greatest losses in my professional career occur because of that mistake in the roofing space. Because of the way I work, and I work primarily remotely. Like the vast majority of what I do is from a desktop with monitors, and I run the company remote, right? And so I ran into some problems with other leadership where it appeared that I wasn't doing anything. And I had to go through and show all this documentation of what I had actually been building out behind the scenes. And a lot of the time, and you guys probably understand this as software developers, the user interface might seem very simple. Ideally, it does, but the build out of it, the complexities of figuring out how all of these little puzzle pieces fit together is incredibly complex. So just to validate your question, it's a huge issue. It's one that I've personally suffered from because of my own errors in that. What I would do differently there, I think, is one, you do need to show off your work. I didn't do that. I didn't really care about the credit. I was like, I just want to roll up my sleeves and move the needle at that point, right? And that was a mistake. I didn't tell anyone really what I was doing. I was just doing it. And it was making changes to the business that people didn't necessarily see until after the fact. The other thing is, I think FaceTime is important. So I'm also someone who I'm, you know, I'm not the most relational guy in some ways. I do have, I mean, you guys, I have great relationship with you guys. Like I do have great relationships, but most of my relationships are very product driven. And I think that's something that frankly is maybe a weakness of mine as a leader and it's something that I'm aware of is I'm a bit of an introvert. I can be very loud and outspoken and everything like that, but I'm also a bit of an introvert and I like a lot of time alone and everything like that, and I keep to myself for the most part. And so that's something else that's kind of bit me in the butt. But I'll say, if just making an effort to get in front of people on a regular basis, I think that's a big deal. And then communicating what you're doing, that's important. And then caring about them. And that is one thing that I did do well because I always cared about my people. And so it's funny because it was never my employees or subs or anyone like that who doubted my commitment. It was actually other leadership, because those guys, they saw the way I cared about them, because when I called them it was to check on them, right? I had that capacity because I wasn't out in a truck or on a roof. I could call them and say, hey Joe, how you doing, man? What's going on? I see you closed 3 jobs yesterday, congratulations. Or hey, I see you haven't closed a job in a while, is everything okay? And I can call those guys and touch base with them on that personal level. And then also just having culture is such a big thing. It's so important. And I think that was probably something, and to be fair to us, we had a rough time with COVID. Just it hit us at a really inopportune time, and it hit us particularly hard. And so that really kind of jacked up our culture that we had started to build, and it took about a year to recover from that. So, but that's what I would say is the number one thing is make sure you're getting in front of people. Also, be someone that they aspire to be, give them a leader to look up to, show them, hey, you can have these things, and then help them get there. So if your focus is, if you're largely hands off, you can still participate and you can still care about the business. And frankly, you should still be, I mean, if you leave your hands off too long, you're gonna slip, right? Like,
Yeah.
no matter how good of a setup you have, no matter how good your employees are, someone's got to be looking for the next best thing. I mean, the industry, particularly right now, is changing so rapidly. You can't afford to sleep on it, which is part of why I come out to these conferences. I come out here as a proxy for my clients as much as anything else. I come out here to see what's going on so I can bring that information back to them. I go and I meet with the high level guys over at SRS or Eagleview or ProLine or wherever it is. And then I come back and say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what's in beta. Here's what's probably going to come after that. Here's where you should position yourself now. And that's really the focus. And so if you can do those things and then come back to your team and keep them excited, I think that's the way to go about doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes total sense. I identify with a lot of things that you just mentioned, personally as well. But one of the things I'm kind of getting from that is, if you build up your business to where it no longer needs you, where
Yeah.
everything as far as keeping the ball running is running on its own, then that frees you up to then focus more on the people and on the relationships and on the culture that's going to keep that ball rolling indefinitely, versus if you're still stuck in a piece of it, yeah, you may feel like you're contributing, but then you may be missing out on, one of your sales guys that's having a bad time, and you may miss out on that conversation that would have kept him around, and instead he ends up quitting 2 weeks later, right? That's what I'm kind of getting. Is that
It
accurate?
is. Yeah, it is. And that's always been a huge part of my leadership style is I'm very invested in the individual, which is a little bit weird for me because of how I am naturally, but I do genuinely care about my people, and I also understand that that's going to really dictate their performance. And I learned that back in that retail job when I was working. I actually I've had back problems, and I'm an athlete, but I had my stress fracture in my back from football, herniated discs since college. And retail, I was standing 60 hours a week. And so it was really rough on me. But what I would do to stay at work and stay present is I'd go and sit down in the back with, take people back there and just talk to them about their personal lives. And it's wild that we don't really do this in a sense because there's so much people have so much going on in their personal lives and it absolutely impacts their performance at work. And so when I can go in and, talk to someone and they're going through a breakup or something like that, or, they're having financial trouble or whatever else, a family problem, whatever it is, if I can pour into their life and help them live a better life, they're going to perform better. They're going to make better decisions. They're going to last longer. And so while it's me caring about them, it's also me caring about the organisms inside of the overarching entity, right? It's a symbiotic system ideally, and so you gotta nurture those things, and so much of it is actually personal and not just product based. So
Yeah.
Everything I know I've said, I'm sorry, I'm speaking too much on this podcast. I love that because it is the saying, oh, it's not personal, it's business. It's like the worst saying ever. Like literally every
yeah,
business, everything is personal. And
I
so
agree.
I love what you're saying about investing in the individual because you help everything about the business. If you invest in the personal, the business can thrive much easier. Not will thrive, but if you invest in people personally, then you won't have frustrating situations where you didn't know a situation in their personal life. Oh, well,
Exactly.
their wife just had a kid and they've been up for 4 nights in a row, and that's why they were late to this appointment. Like, there's just so many nuances to that, but like, yeah,
There
just
are.
it's people. It's a people business. Like, just that's
There are.
in like recruiting too. It's always been weird to me. Like, it's so easy for me to recruit really good people.
Mhm.
I have other weaknesses, but like for me, it's very easy to recruit crews. It's very easy to recruit like office, like any kind of admin person, any kind of salesperson. Like, they reach out to me. The two guys that work with me right now are amazing.
Mhm.
And I have other roofing contractors say, I don't have guys like you do. I'm like, I don't know how you don't. Like, you just don't. You got to show people. And going back to what you said about showing your work, I'm bad at that too. I do not show my work. I do not show people like, hey, this is what I did. It's not like I'm not bragging. I'm just showing you like, this is what makes this business run. And
Yep.
you'll never know about this, but these are the problems that I solved to make your life easier today and
Right.
this week. And
They see the end number, not the calculation, and
yep,
yeah, don't realize that it was, a 40 segmented formula to get there.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting actually. It was actually that's how I got into Christianity at one point, was because of the difference in the labor force. So when I had my clothing store that I was managing, I had two groups of people that worked for me. I had really devout evangelistic Christians, and I inherited this team. And then I had party boys. And, I was a party boy at the time. And I loved those guys, and I'd go party with them. But guess what? They would come to work hungover. They would have crappy attitudes. Honestly, I found out they were stealing from me. Um, and, the Christians, and I'm not making any statements about this on a general level. This was just that particular experience. But their lives, the way that, they came in, they were smiling, they were sober, they were on time, they took their job seriously. They felt like it was their responsibility to perform in a with honor and everything like that. And I was, oh wow, that's interesting. And we were going backwards. I inherited a store that was going backwards 25%, and that I inherited it in June ish, and by December we were still going backwards 25%. And around December all this stuff started clicking, and I ended up hiring a bunch of more kids from the local Bible colleges. And in December alone, I made up for the entire year's loss. And then we grew that store to a place, to my knowledge, it's never, and I left there over 10 years ago. To my knowledge, it's never beaten the numbers that we did still. And I, a lot of that I think just comes down to the character of the people that were working there. And then the fact that I did what I could to nurture, because it's not like they didn't have personal stuff going on too, but I spent a lot of time and energy nurturing their personal lives and helping them. And they, and I'm still, I'm still very close with almost all of them. I was in two of their weddings. Several of them were in my wedding when I was married. One of them was actually my wife. I mean, it was just like, actually, one of them is a vendor partner of mine now. It's like, it's crazy how intimate that became, and they were such a great team. And so yeah, that really, it showed me how important that element was and is.
Yeah. Yeah, it
It's
makes
super
makes total
important.
sense.
People
Yeah.
are people. Like, it doesn't matter what
Right. What?
path
Yeah.
you're in. Like, people are people. Just treat
Yep.
them well.
Yeah.
Yep.
The yeah, I think what someone views as their purpose and main driver in life has a major impact on both their values and how they live their life. So, and I think one of the strengths of Christianity is how it creates that purpose, that a purpose that bears good fruit. Once you when you have your aim on that. Now, I mean, I think there is multiple ways to achieve that similar thing, but you can look at, like you're saying, the party boys, they had a lot of fun, but it's like when your purpose in life is like sort of centered around having fun and centered around partying, you can look at the fruit of that, and it's just not the same. The fruit of that, both in their lives personally and for the entities that they're involved with, the businesses that they're working for, is not nearly as positive.
Right. Yeah. So, and it doesn't have to be religious or anything, but yeah, it comes down to the worldview. That
Yeah.
one of those groups had a very selfish worldview, and the other group had a very unselfish worldview. And
Yeah.
so the unselfish worldview, regardless of what its foundation is the one that obviously produced better results than the one that was just like me, 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 me. And
100%.
so yeah, that was very big. We should change the subject though, because I taught philosophy, and so we don't want to go to.
I was just gonna
I'll
say,
nerd out
let's.
on that stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, I love. Well, we won't go too deep onto this podcast, but I'll talk to you about philosophy. I'm
Okay.
down. I'm
Yeah.
down. Well, yeah. So this is good. So let's kind of circle back, because I've been writing down stuff. So when you were kind of talking through, how you end up getting acquired, one of the things you mentioned was flipping insurance projects into retail, which
Yeah.
that kind of stuck in my head. What do you mean by that? What was that?
So I was at this event. We were part of this group. We invested like 20 grand in it before we even had a company name, just to be a part of this company. They helped build some really big home service businesses in all of Texas. Now, they were a retail focused model though. So they were very maintenance and repair heavy, and then they would turn that into retail replacements. Dallas is a very difficult market for that. While I was there, someone told me that Power Home and Remodeling was selling roofing in Dallas at $1,000 a square. And this was 2019, 2020. And so we were trying to think, we were probably around $300 to $400 a square back then. I don't remember, but somewhere, I mean, they were selling it more than double and selling retail. We were insurance. So I'm like, how is that possible? Like everyone else is giving away free roofs. They're selling at $1,000 a square. And so I hired a guy who was a director of sales for Power, and picked his brain on the process and how they did things and how to sell retail. And I discovered that, and we were already kind of lined up for white glove service and trying to differentiate ourselves in a very crowded marketplace. Dallas has God knows how many thousands of roofers, from just, subs that are doing it for pennies on the dollar to the hundred, I don't even know how many $100+ million companies we have. So it's tremendously competitive. And so, I spent a lot of time, money, and energy building out these presentations to portray enough value that people would be willing to not only not have their deductible eaten, but would actually pay a premium to go with our services. And we were pretty successful at that, actually. I mean, the guys who are out eating the deductibles, obviously they're going to get more jobs. I mean, it's just, I don't care how good you are, free is a lot more attractive. But what we had to do, and this is a huge freebie for anybody wanting to sell roofing, and I almost got in an argument with some guy on Facebook about this last week. I didn't engage, but he was telling me there's no such thing as a unique selling proposition in roofing because it's a commoditized business model. And I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't have to be. And so what I designed in this system was, um, you want your customers to be excited about your product. And this is what I say. If you have, let's say you're driving a 1994 Toyota Corolla and the engine goes out and someone's like, it's going to cost you $2,000 to fix it. No one wants to do that. No one wants to pay $2,000 to fix the status quo. But if I say, okay, but for 10 grand, I'll give you a Mercedes brand new. Okay, cool. That's why people have luxury bags that can't afford them and all this. People want nice. They want better. They'll pay for better. They won't pay for the same or worse. And so what I realized is we need to figure out a way to position our presentation to where we are offering them something better. And we actually have to recast the vision of what roofing is, because they look at it as, I started off very utilitarian because I'm a pretty utilitarian guy in a lot of ways. And so it was like, we're protecting, it's literally the roof over your head. And I thought that was a pretty appealing sales angle. And it turns out that it's not, because they're like, yeah, but I don't care. It's the roof over my head. It's gonna, whatever.
It worked before, you
It
know.
worked before, it'll work after. I don't care if it's pretty. So instead of that, we pivoted to a design rendering model where we showed them, we okay. So the first step you have to do if you're going to sell retail in an insurance market is you need to turn your product and your services into something that's not an apples to apples comparison with the rest of the market. And so that's what we did. We came up with a particular roofing package that was very high end looking, had high end functionality. We went with a shingle that was a designer shingle that also had impact resistance to it. And we did a bunch of really cool stuff with the accessories. We used bullet boots and better drip edge and open valleys. And we did some really nice stuff with it that was more expensive, but our total extra cost on it might have been, I don't know, 50 to $100 a square, and we were selling it $700+ a square in Dallas while everyone else was eating deductibles. And so by doing that and by helping them recapture this vision of, hey, this at one point this was probably your dream home. And how would it feel to roll up to your house and have the best looking house on the block? And then you show them what it could look like with this different, like, oh, wow. I didn't like they don't know because they don't see. You have to put that in front of them. And once you do that, then you just get in, then it's a question of the funding. And at that point, then you have to have a conversation about what insurance is and isn't responsible for, what that process is like. And so what we ended up doing was what I called my dual funding model. And so what we would do is we would get them approved for financing, and then we would, recommend that they reach out to a PA or someone to get the insurance money. And what ended up happening was we would sell them on retail. They would, go get the insurance. We would help help provide any documentation necessary. And then at the end, they'd get this big insurance check, which was the other angle I took on it. And I was always looking for angles on how to present this, but this is during COVID. People were having cash flow issues because they weren't in work. And so here's, I said it this way. All right, you have two options. You can pay your $3,000, $4,000 deductible out of pocket right now, and then you're gonna get a $25,000 roof for $4,000, which is a great deal. The ROI on that's fantastic, but it's gonna hurt your cash flow. Or over the lifetime of the roof, we can put you on small monthly payments, and then instead of forking over $4,000 now, you can get a check from the insurance company for $14,000 to $15,000. Now, when it comes to a line item estimate, we were doing upgraded products they're spending more money. So our invoices were higher, not lower. So it wasn't insurance fraud, but they were able to keep those checks and then just make the payments. So they could either use the insurance check to pay that down, but a lot of the times they're like, well, I want to get my windows done or something remodeled. People were living in their homes at the time. They wanted to open up the windows or whatever. So then they would just double down and buy other products from us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, they're getting a roof and they're essentially getting a probably pretty attractive interest rate on in that case, like a $15,000 per, loan that they can do whatever they want with. That's just secured by
Yeah, the loans
the
were
home.
quite a bit higher than 15,000 because of what we were selling at. But yeah,
True. Yeah. Yeah. True.
yeah.
In the long run, but I mean, in the short run,
Right. Yeah,
the way they're perceiving it and
right.
making this decision is like, oh, I just have a little, this little monthly payment, and then I'm just getting 15K to do whatever with.
Exactly. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, the
Yeah.
15K is what they were getting. Yeah, exactly.
Not
Exactly. And then
financially accurate, but like, emotionally accurate.
emotionally,
And yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And I would personally never buy that way because I prefer to if it's going to cost if the interest rate's higher than what I'm earning on my money, I'm not paying it. I'll just pay cash, right? And so but that's a luxury and something that comes with being intentional with your money, which most people aren't, frankly.
Right. Yeah, that's super fascinating. John, how does that compare? Because I know you will often sell insurance jobs with financing and then have them pay on the back end. Is your pitch similar to that?
It's very similar. So it's very, very similar. We finance. One other thing that we do is we just finance the deductible if they've like, because deductibles are changing so much, and they're like, oh, it's a $9,000 deductible for a $18,000 roof. I'm like, just finance the deductible. If you don't want to, if you want to pay for some of it, whatever. We'd rather them finance the whole thing and click a button and pay us, and then they collect the money. Because once they have their new roof, they don't care about paying you. They're just the amount of energy and effort and staff, even with ProLine, is wild just to collect the money that they already know they owe you. And they've already they like to write a 5-star review too before they paid us, because they're like,
the ProLine customers on my build out then, because I've got some stuff for collections that's pretty powerful.
yeah, we definitely need that, because I mean, we're as we're recording this, like a couple days post huge storm in Georgia and the Southeast. And so yeah, it's super. I don't love insurance work. I love retail work. It's the best. It is the leads that we get. Like, I feel bad about myself about these other teams in the area, and I know they're really good contractors, and I'm like, dude, how are you doing this? And then they're like, oh, we just brought in 4 door knockers. I'm like, that's not. I get it, but like, for what I want to do, is the quality of customers that they're getting are not the quality of customers that I want. It's a lot of effort, energy, management, and much lower profit total if you have 4 people to get one roof, and which is what they have. They have 4 canvassers, they have project managers, and they have salespeople. I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather sell on exactly what you're saying. Is like, we want to do upgrades. We want them to buy on emotion, and to buy on the process, and to buy on such strong referrals where most of our customers are not even there. A lot of my customers I've never met. No one on my team has ever seen them. And because we communicate, like, people, I've been doing that before COVID. Right. Like, we have some of the best 5-star reviews from people we have never seen in real life.
Yeah.
And it's like, people are like, what? How? I'm like, because they don't want to talk to a roofer. They want to be communicated perfectly to. They want every picture. They want every possible. I mean, it's no magic thing. It's just like, hey, they're busy. Send them these automations. Text them. Just be a nice person. Hey, I'm on the way. I'm coming to inspect your house. The number of people that don't do that is wild to me. And then start with that. And then throughout the entire process, not the end of the day, but throughout the build, they're getting specified company cam pictures. I'm like, guys, it's so easy to do that. And then they want to write a 5-star review because they know you did ice and water shield around all the pipe boots. They know you did new flashing. They see it. Like, don't take our word for it. Like, the pictures. And then they're like, they refer all their friends that are also, they don't have to be super high end customers. They're just really great customers that are willing to pay a premium.
Yeah. Some of our best customers were not super high end. We had some great high end ones too, but yeah, it's people don't understand in sales that so much of it is like the preemptive protection, which is another thing on the production side. That's one of my go-tos, and what I've built into the ProLine model that I have for my clients is we do pre-con calls with signatures. So we did this. It took us a while to implement this. It was something, didn't think of it until maybe our 3rd year, like beginning of the 3rd year, late 2nd year. But we started doing pre-con calls where the production manager would actually do a call with the homeowner prior to install. They would schedule the appointment, and they would go through all of the liabilities, all of the things that can go wrong. They would go through kind of the harder stuff that most of the time we try and brush under the carpet. Little stuff like, hey, your satellite might not work afterwards. You might have to call someone out to adjust it. Little stuff like that. And I can't tell you how many hundreds of headaches I had as a sales rep, and then even as the company owner, because someone was banging on the roof because they're nailing thousands of nails into the roof, and great grandma's mug fell off the wall and it's worth 30 cents, but to them it's priceless. What do you do with that? Well, if you just set the situation up for success on the front side by communicating, hello, hey, make sure you take anything valuable off. Yeah, and you go through that. And by the way, we're gonna have you sign something just saying we went through this, just to make sure. Okay, boom. We just want to make sure that you didn't miss anything we said. Read through this, sign it, let us know. Boom. And it stopped. It stopped so many, and production issues are actually the biggest reason that collection issues occur most of the time. That, and for some reason we've decided that it's a good idea to have sales reps go and collect money. Which I
1000%. Love that. I love that. Like, say that again to the people in the back, because it's
okay.
wild.
I didn't want to insult. I didn't know if you had your reps doing that, but I think that is a horrendous idea. You have yeah. I mean, I'm going to get on a soapbox here for a second. Sales reps. Here's the thing. Sales reps. Okay, what percentage of the population is capable of knocking on a door and selling something? It is a small percentage of the population that's capable of that. What percentage of those people are also going to be good at closing? There's some overlap there, maybe because it's still sales. What percentage of those people are going to be good at admin? What percentage of those people are going to be good at dealing with adjusters? What percentage of those people are going to be good at keeping track and up to date with a CRM, or God forbid a notepad, because their company isn't providing that? What percentage of those guys are going to be able to understand the complexities of insurance invoicing? They don't deal with that. And then they get a number from the office and say, hey, here's what you're owing us. And they're like, what? Where'd you get this number from and all this? That's not what the check is or whatever. And then so the ability to do all of those, just the potential ability to do all of those is extremely rare. The person who can do all of those things is extremely rare. And the ones who can are the ones who are going to go and start their own company. So you're training your own competition. But then in addition to that, there's a bandwidth problem, and there's also a longevity and cash flow problem, because you start someone in the industry and they spend several months having to learn all of these things. What happens? Okay, they learn how to canvas. Great. I finally got some leads coming in. Okay, now I signed a couple. Great. Now the insurance company just denied it. Well, now I'm 90, 120 days into my new career in roofing and I haven't gotten a paycheck. How many people can afford to float themselves that long? So the people that actually make it, we're setting them up for failure and killing our business. Then there's a whole other layer to that, which is, how much money are your sales reps worth when they are in the field selling? Hundreds of dollars an hour, thousands of dollars an hour, maybe depending on the product. How much money could you pay to have someone do your collections for you? $20 an hour, maybe, most. I have one of my favorite vendor partners, other than you guys, is a VA firm that will run your entire office up to 35 roofs a month for $7,500 a month. That's the one salary. They will run the entire office start to finish. Your sales reps can sell. And it's just insane to me that the model is, hey, just, have them do absolutely. And look, obviously some of the most successful companies in the industry are doing that. So, who am I to talk? But I just think that even those guys, I think that those guys are successful because of something else they have, not because of their model.
In spite of the model.
Yes, exactly. Like, you look at the guy, it's a cultural thing. It's, I think, and I don't know much about linear, but I think about linear, they obviously have a very intense culture and a very strong culture. I think most of those guys are on that 10-50-50 pretty traditional roofing model. And I think a lot of that has to do more with the culture and the leadership than it has to do with the way they're set up. I think if you were to take some of that off those guys' plates, probably in a much better position. And I don't know anything. I don't know anything about their business model, so that might be a terrible example.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not familiar with that company specifically.
I mean, they sold to PE. They're huge. They did they're a 9-figure company in Dallas.
Nice.
A lot of gym guys. They're all from LA Fitness originally, I think. So it's a lot of bodybuilders and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, probably a lot to do with that culture.
Ton
But
of culture there for sure.
yeah, huge frustration with us. I'm seeing less and less of this, I'll say, but we still see it. But it's the roofing club model. And it's usually 10-50-50, but it's not. I don't think even 10-50-50 is the problem. It's the model of, we're going to have a company, and I'm the owner, and I'm going to hire a sales rep, and each sales rep is going to act like their own independent company and is going to handle
Yeah.
the sales, the production, the billing, all the way end to end. And you get this completely disjointed mess where everyone has their own process, their own way of doing things,
Yeah.
and it's a mess.
Now, yeah, again, if you can build the right structure for that to flow, that's great. But you also don't have to pay them 10, 50, 50 if you've got a lead system that's auto booking their appointments, sending out these crazy nurturing campaigns that are letting automatically, hey, you don't even have to send the homeowner a notification. We're going to send them, you're going to spend 30 seconds recording a little mini bio video of you. We're going to pop it into an automated message, and that's going to go out to every customer before you run your appointment. Let them know you're on the way. Here's who to expect. You show up, boom, you're solid. That job should be sold before you get in, which is why John doesn't have to meet his customers.
Dude, it is so weird to me that people say, like, I mean, I want them to, I love what you just said. I've said this so many times that like people do not believe it. Like, we want our customers to be like, oh, hi, John. Hi, Clay. Hi, Cameron. Before you open the door, people are like, how? I'm like, are you serious right now? Like,
Yeah.
the minimum is sending a picture of your
Minimum.
sales rep.
Yeah.
Minimum. How about create a 30-second video? Pay a videographer to create a 30-second video like, hey, I'm Cameron, blah, blah, blah. And he loves it. And it makes the sales reps love it better. The customers love it better. They close at a higher rate. They can sell at a premium already. And they have
Yep.
never even shaken anyone's hand at all. Like, and it's like, guys, it doesn't take that much effort. It just takes effort to do these things. And like,
Some intentionality in the planning side, but yeah, but that's the other thing too, is you invest it on the fronts. It's so frustrating. I'm going to do a plug here for my call I have coming up on Monday, but it's frustrating for me because I've got so many people that are like, well, I don't have time. And I'm like, I understand. I was a roofing company owner too. I understand. Like, I've been drowning in that world too. But the reason you don't have time is because you don't make time, right? Like, I promise you, if you give me 1 hour of your time, you will find so many holes in your business that you didn't even know existed that are not only going to help increase your profits, but are also going to be able to free up your time. But people have to have that vision and understand that you work hard on the front side with those things so that you don't have to ever do it again. I don't ever have to send a customer a message letting them know that I'm coming out to their property again because I set it up one time. Did it take me 10 times the amount of time to set it up one time as it does to do it? Yeah, but now I don't have to do it 1,000 times. So yeah, it's more cost up front, but the long-term savings are unquestionable.
Yep. 100%. Well, Chris, this has been great. Really enjoyed this, and just sort of connecting and getting to know your story. And so, yeah, this has been phenomenal. For those listening, how that might want to work with you and use your services, how can they go and work with you and get in touch with you?
Sure. Can'tQuitConsulting.com, CANTQUIT consulting.com. Is one. You can follow me on Instagram at Can'tQuitChris. I'm on Facebook as well. And just reach out. And you can even email me if you want, Chris at Can'tQuitChris.com. That's on my personal website for that one. But yeah, any of those methods, I've got a bunch of ads out right now with a landing page to sign up. I don't know when this is going to go out. I don't, but October 7th, 7 p.m., I'm doing this launch call. It's going to be really powerful. Going to go through, show how impactful a CRM can be to start, just showing how if you dial in each of your conversion stages, you can go anywhere from I do a model where I show how you can go anywhere from, you could technically go negative 20,000 on a $20,000 ad spend, but with a half decent business, you could do 60,000 in profit off of it. But with a finely tuned business, you could do 750,000 off of that same 20 grand in ad spend using a good pipeline system. And so I'm going to talk about that. Then we're going to go through a mini version of my scorecard. So again, I was trying to figure out, how do I get in to help people? And even if this airs, after someone watches this after, there will be some additional ways to get access to this stuff, but I charge a couple $1,000s for this audit, the systems audit that I do, the scorecard and design I do with them. So we're going to do a mini version of that on this call for free, where I'm going to give people a list of questions. They're going to score out how they rate themselves on these different categories. We go through everything from leads to collections and re-engagement. And then after that, I'm going to give some solutions for some of my favorite, just quick hit solutions, quick tips to start filling in some of the gaps, making sure you're not bleeding out customers from your pipeline. And then we'll go over, we're gonna have some accountability stuff like a cohort model that'll be optional for people as well. So we're gonna go through all that as well. And then that'll end up being a weekly call where each week I go in and dig into a specific topic with the group. We'll do 30 minutes where I'll educate on something, or I'll bring in an expert like one of you guys to educate on it, and then we'll do a 30-minute Q&A. So, and that's gonna, right now, I'm doing the first month free, and then it's gonna be $200 a month for a while. I'll end up jumping that up, I'm sure, but for right now, it's gonna be about $200 a month, and you can't get a better value. I don't think there's a better value than that. Plus, it comes with 150 pages of design roadmaps and I'm actually giving away the full 30-page scorecard that I use with my clients. So I'm not going through it with you, but I'm giving all of that away.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Yeah, this episode will go out in probably 2 to 3 weeks. So it will come after, but it sounds like people can still get involved. There might be a recording of that video that will
Yeah,
be out.
there'll be a recording. I might do another round on that too. I'm thinking about doing like a quarterly webinar kind of a thing for that, because it is interactive, right? And so I was originally planning to not have it be as interactive, but I think there's going to be better value this way. And so it might be something that I do on a residual model, and then have them, they can jump in, they'll have access to past lectures or whatever, and then they can uh pick up from there after that first one. But the first one is really going to be where you get your list of, hey, this is what I need to be working on.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I like it. Well, yeah, so that's great. So we'll definitely send people and we can chat after too about how we can potentially help you out with that call in the short run.
Sure.
Help you promote that. But we usually end with just a fun question. What are you looking forward to the most just in the next few weeks, or next week or few weeks?
Well, I'm looking forward to this launch call, and then I'm debatably moving. I was pretty excited about that. I was looking at this really sweet place in Dallas. I just found out last night though that they're charging $30 a night per guest, and I'm like, that might be a problem. So I was pretty pumped about that, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do that anymore, because I have a lot of guests, and I'm like, that's going to stack up to a couple grand a month.
How
That's
do
kind
they
of,
track that?
it's valet.
Oh, it's a
Ballet
valley.
only. Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
pretty high-end building in Dallas, and so
That's
it's
a
really
weird
nice.
rule.
It's weird. I was so frustrated when I found out, because I like psyched myself up into getting this really nice spot, and I had all these plans for it, and I'm like, man, it's already it's a very expensive building, and then on top of that, I'm like, oh man, it's almost like a principal thing for me too. It
Yeah.
just means, you want me to pay how much
For
for rent?
gas?
And then you want me
Yeah.
to, yeah, like if I have a girlfriend and she's gonna come over every night, it's like $30 a night. I'm looking at a
So
couple.
weird.
Yeah, it's weird, weird,
Yeah.
weird. So, but I am looking forward to some of that, and then really just kind of this launch. I've got a couple new clients that I'm really excited about. I got a guy up in the Washington, California area. He's under a year old. He's on pace to do 8 million in his first year, just straight bootstrapping. Didn't have a CRM up until last week. And then just, it's wild. So, but he's all about it, gung ho, ready to go. So I'm excited to work with a couple of these guys right now.
Love it.
You can do
Love
with
it.
their business. Yeah.
Good stuff.
And thank you
Well,
guys for having me,
yeah.
and also thank you for ProLine. It's a great software. I've really enjoyed working with it. The learning curve on it has been really moderate, honestly, which a lot of CRMs they're not user intuitive, particularly on the build out side. And so that's been a pleasure. And then you guys
I
also
appreciate
just
that.
really fantastic. So
Hey man,
Yeah,
good to
that means a
meet you.
lot.
yeah,
Yeah,
you too.
it means a lot.
You do.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll wrap up there. Thanks so much. And
Thank you guys.
we'll see everybody next week. Next
Awesome.
Bye
episode.
everybody.